Hi and welcome back to my channel, and in this video we're going to be looking at CIC horror stories. I'm going to tell you some really bad stories about CICs. Now I don't want to put you off, but it does let you know sort of the worst case scenarios that can happen so you can protect yourself on your CIC journey. So before we get into that, please hit the subscribe button, subscribe to this channel so you can stay up to date with everything to do with CICs and grant funding. And also jump over to my website, kex.co.uk, where you can get my online course, How to Set Up a CIC and Get Funded in 4 months. And also I have a membership zone as well, which is full of masterclasses. So if you like this channel, you're going to love the membership with all the masterclasses. So that aside, let's jump into it. So unfortunately, I know of quite a few horror stories that have happened to people who have founded CICs. So the thing with CICs, as you know, is you need to have other directors. So pretty much all the horror stories I know are linked to the problems with directors. I feel like a CIC as a model is brilliant, and you know, it pretty much runs without a hitch because you're designing your own work, you're planning your own workshops, you're delivering these fantastic projects which you've designed. So all that goes swimmingly well, okay? There might be the odd crisis, maybe at an event or something like that, but that's just the case with any business. So the main nightmare does appear to be around directors. So unfortunately, I'm going to just give you a couple of examples where I know of people that have had issues with directors. One person I know, she was really kind and offered to be a director on someone else's CIC. Now, she didn't know that person very well. She just came into contact with them professionally. She knew they were struggling to get a director, so she sort of offered to help. Now, that was a really kind thing to do, but she really didn't know those people very well. And what happened is they got National Lottery funding, and I don't know if they just didn't do the project or what, but basically my friend then got contacted by the National Lottery, and they said, you know, what's happened with the project? We need to audit it. Can you show us, proof that it happened? And she was like, well, I was just taking kind of a backseat role. She wasn't doing what she should have done, which is be keeping up to date with things at a quarterly meeting, which is what I tell everybody that they need to do if they're a director, is keep up to date with everything at quarterly meetings. She didn't really do that. She kind of sat on the back seat. She just let them get on with it. They, for whatever reason, didn't run their project, and then the National Lottery were asking for their money back, because if you don't run a project and you can't show evidence for it, they will ask you for the whole 10,000 back. So they basically started emailing her and saying, well, we haven't got any evidence, so you need to pay back this 10,000. Your name is also on it. And she was like, well, I was just trying to help these people. Like, it wasn't anything to do with me. So she basically had to tell the lottery, look, it had nothing to do with me. I was just a director sitting on the board, nothing to do with me. And she said, basically, I'm not going to reply to any more emails. And that was that. Luckily, there isn't anything else, because the director isn't personally responsible. They weren't going to come after her in any other way. But it still just highlights how, if you don't know the people that you're getting involved with the CIC, then there can be problems. So another example was somebody who set up a CIC, and it was really their baby. It was their idea. And they basically got pushed out by the other directors that came in. So I think where the fault with their situation was, it was a very large CIC, and their model was much bigger. Everybody wanted a job in it. And because that, the other people who had jobs in it then were able to actually push the founder out, which is a shame, because obviously that was their baby, and that's a horrible thing to think to happen. And that's one of the reasons why I prefer to keep my CIC small, because then I know I'm the only person who's working on it. I don't promise incomes or jobs to anybody else. So that's one way you can protect yourself, is to keep things small, because once you give people jobs, then it can cause issues if you fall out. And I know several different organisations where that's happened to, people fall out, and that's obviously natural, but it's horrible if you then get pushed out by the other two people. So another example, of course, I'm keeping all these anonymous and not giving too much detail. So another example is a person who contacted me, And they said, I don't know what to do. I'm a director, and the other 2 directors have fallen out big time, and they're getting really nasty. And he said, I'm trying to be reasonable and trying to come to a common ground, but it seems like neither will leave quietly. So what they're going to do is end up just tearing the CIC apart. And for that particular case, it was actually a social cause. So there was a real community impact on what those 2 people are then doing. Because remember, CIC actually, obviously because it benefits the community can be affected if a CIC is, it falls apart or isn't working properly, or there's tensions. And the other thing can happen is when these 2 people then split, if they do decide to go, then what could happen is they end up both then starting the similar CIC and then competing against each other. And that's a really negative space to have in the community, because you've got these 2 directors who are bitter towards each other, who are competing with funding locally, and maybe slagging each other off to other partners, etc., and trying to get away. And that can be a really horrible situation for everybody involved, and really everybody loses in that situation. So my last example is a bit more extreme. This person contacted me and said about doing this video, and he said, you can tell my story anonymously. And his story was really powerful, because it was sad, because what happened is not only did the other directors turn against him, they were really quite horrible people, and they actually tried to really go out and destroy him. And they actually made up a lot of lies, that he had been fraudulent, and that he had committed crime. And this was all investigated. It was completely unfounded, but they had really tarnished this man and really caused him so much stress and upset, being accused of these crimes that he hadn't committed in the organisation. And that was a really terrible thing for that person to go through. And it took a long time for that person to be able to pick themselves up and go forward and start their own project again. So that's an example of a really worst case scenario, where people can turn against you, get nasty, and then almost try to get out to destroy you. And again, this kind of bitterness that unfortunately is in humans, that comes out in these situations. And sometimes when people get this power, especially when you becoming a director, people can get this power. And I think that some people just wield that badly. So ways you can protect yourself against these horror stories are: be careful who you hire as directors. Don't hire anyone that's too powerful or looks like they could tear you down if you fell out with them. Hire people who are quite a calm, non-stressy kind of personalities. People that you can see who've managed conflict in their lives reasonably. If they've managed any kind of conflict in their lives where they have, written complaints and tried to destroy people, and that that's something about their character, do not have them as a director on your CIC. So calm, placid people, reasonable people, mature people, or even, if you go for younger people, then they're people that maybe, wouldn't actually, they see you as the elder, they wouldn't really be somebody who would actually try to tear you down, because, they're somebody who's just starting out in their career. So somebody who's, maybe earlier on in their career, or a younger person is a good candidate. And then also just about being transparent, having those quarterly meetings, minuting everything, making sure everybody's in the loophole, making sure everybody's clear about their roles in the CIC, that it is unpaid, and make sure everybody's working for the aim of the community. They're passionate about the community, and they're not going to be someone who's going to want to tear down your CIC and not care about the impact on the community. So people that are passionate, that's a really important point. So don't let those horror stories put you off, but keep them in mind and let them help you prepare yourself and protect yourself.